My grandmother's house was in Bellevue, a small neighborhood in Ward 8, which was well known as the poorest ward in Washington, D.C. When I was living in Detroit with my mom, poverty, crime, and violence were present in the community. But as long as I rode my bike in one direction from our condo, I could usually avoid seeing them up close. Plus, poverty was not nearly as concentrated in my former Detroit community as it was in the part of D.C. my grandma lived in. Now my home was in the center of a neighborhood where looking at the wrong person the wrong way could get you killed. My biggest fear when moving to D.C. was that I would have to go to the local high school, Ballou. Every once in a while there was a report on the news about a shooting at Ballou. There were metal detectors at the entrances, little resources, and few opportunities there for real learning. It was a dead end, and I knew that coming from a liberal private school environment like Roper to a rough inner-city school like Ballou, I would be a target. I was pretty good at code switching by then, and as I walked the streets of my new neighborhood, I got better and better at fitting in among the other guys my age, but I knew I'd never be able to fit in at Ballou. I knew how to carry myself in a way that made it easier for me to blend in, but I wasn't hard. If I went to Ballou, I'd be asking to get jumped, ridiculed, or worse. So my focus when moving to D.C. was on getting into a good school. But it was summer by then, and at that point most schools were fully enrolled for the coming year. Many even had long wait lists. Luckily, Randall Dunn, the headmaster from Roper, was a huge help and put me in touch with the administrations at some of the best schools in the area. I was accepted at all of them, but several had no choice but to place me on the wait list. At one school, an administrator even implied, during my interview, that they had to put another kid ahead of me on the wait list because of who his parents were. To get to those interviews, I had to take public transportation. For the first year and a half that I was living in D.C., my dad rarely had a car. When he did, it was in poor condition and usually broke down shortly after he got it. Having to walk or take the bus everywhere made me feel exposed. It forced me to be in close proximity to and interact with intimidating people who in Detroit I would have just driven by with my mom. In our neighborhood, for every relatively quiet street like mine, there were one or two that were rowdier, full of groups of guys hanging out on the corner or in front of a liquor store. When I walked through and around these groups, I tried to fix my stance, my posture, and my face so that I would look like I belonged, or at least not stand out quite so much. One night early in the summer, I was coming home from one of my interviews, after taking the metro to Anacostia, the closest stop, which was more than 2 miles from my house. I waited for the bus that would bring me closer to home. It didn't come. I overheard someone at the station say that there had been a shooting and they had temporarily shut down the bus line. After waiting for 2 hours, I decided to walk. Until then, I had walked within only a 5 or 6 block radius of my house. Now, walking for more than 30 minutes from Anacostia in the dark, I was afraid. I was wearing a suit and tie for the interview and carrying a backpack, and I was well aware of how much I stood out. Block after block I walked quickly, but not so fast that I appeared scared, as I passed abandoned buildings, a few homeless people, and drug addicts, and mostly groups of people hanging out on street corners. On one block, 2 guys were fighting in the center of a circle of onlookers. I did my best to stay out of everyone's way. Sometimes I crisscrossed the same street several times to avoid groups of people.